أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله والحمد حقه كما يستحقه حمدا كثيرا. وأعوذ به من شر نفسي إن النفس لأمارة بالسوء إلا ما رحم ربي. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الخلق وخاتم الأنبياء وسيد المرسلين، سيدنا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المطهرين المكرمين. صلى الله عليك سيدي ومولاي يا أبا عبد الله، وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. صلوات. قال الله العظيم في كتابه الكريم وهو أحسن القائلين وأصدق الصادقين: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وأنفقوا في سبيل الله ولا تلقوا بأيديكم إلى التهلكة وأحسنوا إن الله يحب المحسنين. آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم. For the purification of the souls, the enlightenment of the hearts, the hastening of the reappearance of the awaited Saviour, Ajrallahu Ta'ala Farajuh Sharif, enlighten your souls and purify your hearts and the atmosphere with the recitation of salawat upon Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Respected elders, sisters and brothers, Salamun alaykum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. It's a wonderful state enjoyed by a group of people and a position praised by the Holy Prophet and the Ahl al-Bayt. A state that is desired, has merits and great results, but needs to be demonstrated with qualities and characteristics. KHADIM Al-Hussein, the servant of Hussein, is a title that is beautiful, outstanding, given to an individual who dedicates his time and his life for the cause of Sayyid al-Shuhada, Aba Abdullah al-Hussein, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. Whether it's in Husayniyas, Imam Bargas, processions, mawkibs, walks, in many places you'll find Khuddamul Hussein. And many will come and tell you, Khadamatul Hussein sharafun lana. To serve Hussein ibn Ali is a means of honor for us. It's an outstanding attribute that the human being should seek to establish in their lives. For the recognition that emerges today is, one wonders, what has Sayyid al-Shuhada done to the hearts and minds of humanity? I ask you, has there been an individual for 1400 years who has galvanized and motivated and inspired so many individuals to the extent that on an annual basis, millions walk for tens of kilometers chanting his name. I tell you, has there been any other individual who has been the motivation and inspiration for revolutions that have toppled tyrants and dictators? I tell you, is there any other individual who has inspired hundreds of millions on an annual basis to congregate around the world, none of them forced, but willingly coming forward to remember him and to remember what he stood for? Without a shadow of a doubt, Hussein and his companions died thirsty on the plains of Karbala, but they continue to quench the thirst of humanity through freedom, dignity and submission. Without a shadow of a doubt, Hussein ibn Ali and his companions wrote the constitution of freedom using their lives and signed it with their blood on the plains of Karbala. And today, whomsoever follows them, dedicates their lives for them, indeed is mesmerized by their dedication. That is why you find from the moment that the 10th of Muharram began, a day like tomorrow, these Khuddam al-Hussein emerged. Their reality was there for people to see. They began to write their names in this wonderful list of the servants of the grandson of the Holy Prophet, the likes of Sa'id ibn Hunayf al-Azdi, Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayh. These Khuddam al-Hussein, some of them are not well known. Hence the objective to highlight some of these names that you may have not heard of. Sa'id ibn Hunayf was a man who said to Aba Abdullah on the eve of Ashura, 70 times if I'm killed, I will want to be brought back to life in order to give my life to you, Ya Hussein. And on the 10th, when Sayyid al-Shuhada was performing his salah, he stood right in front of Aba Abdullah. Narration said, by the time Imam alayhi salam finished his salah, known as the prayer of fear, Salatul Khawf, the body of Sa'id was full and filled and riddled with arrows, to the extent that he collapsed before Sayyid al-Shuhada. He had a few seconds of his life. With a smile, he looks at his master, the one who he's seeking to serve, and said, Awafaytu ya Aba Abdullah, have I fulfilled my objective? Imam said, Bala, yes, anta amami fil jannah. You will now enter paradise. Yes, there is another individual by the name of Muhammad ibn Bishr al-Hadrami. Who is Muhammad ibn Bishr? From Ansar al-Hussein, from Ashab al-Hussein, from Khuddam al-Hussein. An individual who on the 10th of Muharram heard that his son has been captured in Ray and is desperately needing him. Imam alayhi salam came to him and said, Muhammad, you are excused. You are to go and save your son in Ray because he needs you. The man falls on the feet of Sayyid al-Shuhada. He said, Sayyid al-Shuhada, Aba Abdullah, may my mother mourn for me, and may my body be torn into pieces. May I be always disgraced if I ever leave you. I would rather what? I would rather be eaten by wolves than abandon you, Ya Hussein. And wallah, we have seen this from that time till today. Tyrants came after time. They said, we will stop Khuddam al-Hussein. We will stop Zuwar al-Hussein. We will stop lovers of Hussein. Wallah, they have never even grasped the beautiful elixir and the language of the love of Aba Abdullah. Because they have seen people thinking that they would give up. Al-Mutawakkil al-Abbasi said, you will have to pay 100 dinars to visit the grave of Hussein. People said, yes, we will. When he saw that wasn't stopping people, he said, I will sever their right arm. People gave their right arm. He said, I will sever their left arm. People gave their left arm. They came forward. They began to chant, لو قطعوا أرجلنا واليدين نأتيك زحفا سيدي يا حسين. You could sever our right and sever our left. We will come to you crawling our chests, O Ya Hussein. And therefore you see that even when it came to persecution, oppression, terrorism, people rose. People said, we will serve Aba Abdullah. We will visit Hussein. Nobody can stop us. No world power could limit us. I saw this in my own eyes in 2004. The first Ashura after Allah removed the tyrant in Iraq. I was there in Karbala on the day of Ashura. There were tens of thousands on the streets mourning and crying. 9 bombs were exploding. They exploded, they tore people's bodies into pieces. I saw it in my own eyes. But wallah, something I will never forget. You'll see everywhere around the world people running away from explosion sites. Not in Karbala. People were running towards explosion sites. Chanting Labbayka ya Hussein. Chanting Ya Litharat al-Hussein. You think by blowing us into pieces, you stop the love of Hussein? You are way mistaken. It goes from strength to strength. A terrorist who was arrested in Iraq famously said, I don't understand the Shia. We behead them, but it is as if their body without the head still walks to Abu Abdullah in Karbala. And that's why you recognize time after time, people have come forward to establish the magnificence and the status of being Khadim al-Hussein. What does that actually mean? I tell you, I remember in the 40s reading the story that the expansion of the shrine of Sayyid al-Shuhada was about to take place. There was a man who had a house next to the shrine of Sayyid al-Shuhada in Karbala. The authorities came to him and said, we want to buy your house. He said, why? He said, we need to buy your house because of a project. They didn't tell him it was an expansion. He initially refused, but then told them, okay, no problem, but give me a few weeks or a few months. They said, why? He said, I can't tell you. When he agreed and signed the paperwork, they said, we will have to destroy your house because we're now expanding the shrine. He said, no worries. The other houses, they just evacuated and left. He stayed in the house. But instead of just staying in the house, he began to paint it. He began to decorate it. He began to make it even nicer, build it, make it very pleasant. People said he is crazy. What is he doing? The house will be destroyed. Eventually, he handed the keys to the authorities. He says, here you go. Now you can take my house. People came and laughed at him and said, how? You are now leaving a house that you spent so much decorating and it will be destroyed. He said, you are mistaken. On the day of Qiyamah, I say to Abu Abdullah, Ya Hussein, I did not give you a run-down house. I gave you a good house for you. Such is the passion, such is the commitment. That is why I remember seeing a clip of an individual, an elderly man, walking by himself with a stick with a back nailed. An interviewer came to him and said, Haji, where are you going? He said, I've been walking for 14 days from the Iraqi city of Amara towards Karbala. He said, do you have anything? He said, Wallah, I have nothing. He said, then what do you have? He said, I have one thing. I have the Habib, I have the Tabib, I have Hussein. That is what is all that I want in my life. That is what I have been seeking. That is why you recognize that this khidmatul Hussein, that service to Hussein, is of the utmost importance. Our ulama have highlighted it, have emphasized upon it. There was a reciter in Iraq, a Radud, a person who recites Noha and Ma'tam, by the name of Radud Abdul Rada. At the time of Ayatullah al-Uzma Sayyid al-Khu'i, rahmatullahi alayhi, he became sick. He was suffering with an ailment. Someone said to him, why don't you go to the marja and ask him to pray for you? The marja will pray for you. He said, very well. He went to see Ayatullah Khu'i. He found that Ayatullah Khu'i with himself sick. So he felt embarrassed to ask him. He sat next to him. Sayyid al-Khu'i was on his bed. 5 minutes, he said, I spent with him. Before I left, he said, Sayyid al-Khu'i held my hands and said to me, you are a khadim of Hussein. Please pray for me. Your dua will be answered. Allahu Akbar, how this status to be a servant of Sayyid al-Shuhada is of the utmost importance. Before analyzing this, I ask you, when someone does a service to someone, when I am a servant of someone, often I expect a return. Often I think that I have an obligation over them, that they have done something, I have done something for them, that they should be grateful. Isn't it? I'm serving them. If I'm serving somebody, they should be grateful that I am serving them. Should we be somehow in the same state when we approach service to Abu Abdullah and his cause? No. Because when we do service to Hussein, it is not us being khadim of Hussein, it's Hussein serving us. Do you know how? Abu Abdullah gave his life for the religion of Islam. Gave everything. Therefore, he has an obligation over us. He expects from us to rise because of his sacrifice. Therefore, when I am a khadim, when somebody calls me a servant of the cause of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, it is not that I have a favor of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. It's an obligation that I have to fulfill for what Hussein did for me and for my family. And that is why this subject is of great importance, and one that requires us to ask a number of questions tonight, to be able to clarify a number of areas. Number one, what is the quality that the Quran highlights in this regard and is the most beloved to Allah? Number two, what are examples of people who are servants of Ahl al-Bayt, whom we can learn from? Number three, there is a line in Ziyarat Ashura that gives you and I amazing tips on how to become Khadamatul Hussain. Number four, what are the merits of being a Khadim of Hussain? Why should I seek to be a servant of Abu Abdullah? Number five, what are the characteristics of someone who is considered a servant of Sayyid al-Shuhada? And finally, number six, what are the opportunities out there to demonstrate the service towards the grandson of the Holy Prophet, Sayyid al-Shuhada, Abu Abdullah al-Hussain, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. Does Allah love me? Is a question that many people may ask throughout their lives. Is Allah happy with me? Is Allah pleased with me? It's a question that we must have when we wake up in the morning. It's a vital question for our success, for our well-being in this world and akhirah. Someone asks, how do I know if Allah is pleased with me? What are the characteristics? What are the signs that I may see that I recognize Allah is pleased with me? When you look at the Quran, there are 8 different groups of people that Allah says, I am pleased with and I love. 8 groups of people. Amongst the group of people are those who keep pure. In the Holy Quran, chapter 9, verse 108, Allah says, Wallahu yuhibbul muttahireen. If you cleanse yourself, if you're purified, then Allah loves you very well. In 3 different places in the Quran, Allah says He loves those who are constantly aware of His presence. فَاللَّهُ يُحِبُّ الْمُتَّقِينَ. Allah loves those who are God-wary. 3 different areas. But there is no quality that is emphasized as one that Allah loves so much like the following. In 5 occasions in the Quran, please understand this. More than muttaqeen, more than sabirin, more than muttahireen, Allah says, وَأَحْسِنُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. Do good because Allah loves those who are virtuous. In chapter 2, verse 195, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one of 5 occasions, highlights the excellence of ihsan. Subhanallah, the religion of Islam is amazing. In more than 200 places in the Holy Quran, this subject is covered comprehensively. To do good, to be virtuous, to help others, to assist, to be oozing with righteousness is an amazing characteristic of a successful human being, and one that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves, one that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with. Subhanallah, you ask me, this is more than taqwa and sabr and tahara and others. Yes, it's a reflection of these qualities. It's a demonstration of these characteristics, isn't it? That's why when we look at hadith literature, what do we find? We find narration after narration that highlights the benefits and the excellence of a human being who serves others, who helps others, who assists others, who is a tool of kindness towards others. And there are chapters such as in Wasa'il al-Shia of what? Bab Qada'u Hawa'ijul Mu'mineen, the chapter in relation to the fulfillment of the needs of others. Yes, narration after narration highlight the emphasis. Once a man by the name of Aban, one of the companions of the holy 6th Imam, Ja'far ibn Muhammad al-Sadiq, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, said that I was in the presence of my Mawla, the 6th holy Imam, and I was performing tawaf with him in the Masjid al-Haram in Mecca. What an honor to perform tawaf with the Imam of your time. Imagine that the Imam of your time is saying, come with me, let's do tawaf around the Kaaba. He said, whilst we're doing tawaf, somebody called me, Aban. I looked. It was someone who needed help. I ignored him. They once again called me, Aban. I didn't pay attention to him. Imam who was next to me said to me, Aban, why aren't you responding to him? Aban said, Ya ibn Rasulillah, I am with you in tawaf, and this is wajib tawaf. I can't break it. 2 reasons. You are with the Khalifa of Allah, Hujjatullah, Waliullah, around the house of Allah. How can you break it? Imam says, go and find out what he wants. Because if you fulfill his need or actually try to fulfill his need, Allah gives you the reward of performing tawaf around the Kaaba continuously for a whole week. These are mind-blowing narrations. Yes? You think that Islam is measured through some people's experiences or perceptions? No, it's through principles and values. The hadith in Al-Kafi Sharif says, a hadith Qudsi, Al-Khalqu Iyali, فَأَحَبُّهُمْ إِلَيَّ أَلْطَفُهُمْ بِي. That Allah says, the creation are my family. The best of the creation in my eyes and the most beloved are the most kindest to my family. Are the most helpful to those that I have indeed created. And that is why narration after narration say the rewards are outstanding. A man by the name of Ismail Al-Khanthami, this man in Al-Kafi says, I went for pilgrimage and my friends, they all left their bags with me and I couldn't do the a'mal and the recommendations as much. So I came to the Holy Sixth Imam and said to him, Ya Ibn Rasulullah, they did this and I looked after their bags. I wish I can have more thawab. Imam said, Ajruka anta afdalu minhum. You are greater than them. Please understand this. Let's wake up from the wrong perception of what? Quantity. Sometimes the impact impact you make on a human being is greater in the eyes of Allah. Yes? That pleasure you place in the heart of a believer is what? Outstanding. May Allah bless the soul of Ayatollah Imam Al-Khomeini. It is said by one of his students, he said before, when we used to go to Mashhad to visit the shrine of the Holy Eighth Imam, in one occasion what happened was he came with us, with a few of his colleagues and friends. He said, we went for ziyarah at night. We did ziyarah. After we finished ziyarah, he left. He went back to the accommodation. We stayed till the morning, Fajr. We came back, we saw him preparing breakfast for us. Everything was ready for us. Our accommodation was prepared and he was the only one in the house. We said to him, Sayyid, why didn't you stay with us and do a'mal and more ziyarah? He replied, I am not convinced that after my ziyarah, I get more thawab than coming and serving my believing brothers. I don't get more thawab. Yes? Look at this. Look at this understanding from the ethos. I have done my ziyarah, yes. There is great reward in staying in the shrine. But there is more when it comes to helping my brothers and sisters. That is why when you look at what the Holy Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us of a story in which He highlights the merits of being khadim. Which story is that? Someone asks you today, Ahlul Quran, people of Quran, tell me a story from the Quran of somebody who was what? Who was a servant. And Allah praised them for this. Who? Hannah, the mother of Maryam. Salamullahi alayha, bint Imran, the mother of Isa. Yes, she couldn't have a baby. She said to Allah, Ya Allah, whatever I have, if you grant me a baby, I will dedicate this child to be a servant in Baytul Maqdis. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted her. Only a male can be in that place of worship, serving the visitors, serving the worshippers. When she gave birth to Maryam, she was surprised. وَلَيْسَ الذَّكَرُ كَالْأُنْثَى, Quran tells us that this is a daughter, or this is a girl, she is not a male. How is it possible? How can I now dedicate her to serve others in Baytul Maqdis? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the fact that she had this determination, He made it happen. And therefore, she was somebody who would serve in Baytul Maqdis. فَتَقَبَّلَهَا رَبُّهَا بِقَبُولٍ. Allah granted her acceptance. وَأَنْبَتَهَا نَبَاتًا حَسَنًا. Yes, because of the fact that she would serve others, she was what? An example that is mentioned in the Holy Quran. The only female that is mentioned by name in the Holy Quran. And when we look at the lives of the Ma'sumin, Allahu Akbar, you and I are able to bring forth example after example of exceptional servants, isn't it? Those who recognize that salvation is with Ali Muhammad. Those who've understood that to be a servant of one of the A'immat of Ahl al-Bayt is a means of salvation. This is not something to take lightly. This is not something to even ignore. It is an honor. It is a blessing. It is a tawfiq from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wallah, today, If any one of us is able to serve Abu Abdullah, don't feel proud, feel grateful, because it's a blessing from him. He's allowed you to serve Hussein. He's allowed you to dedicate any person doing anything for the cause of Abu Abdullah, for the cause of Hussein. Do a sajda of shukr and say, Ya Allah, allow me to continue because this is all from you. Did you know that each and every member of the Ahlul Bayt had outstanding servants? And they loved them, not because of the fact that they were servants, but because they struck a very powerful relationship, and they were demonstrating qualities of somebody who is a servant of someone. Dedication, love, commitment, loyalty. Zayd ibn Haritha, Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayh, the only Sahabi of the Prophet mentioned in the Quran by name. Zayd ibn Haritha, yes, he comes forward. He was an individual who the Prophet of Islam loved and praised. Zayd ibn Haritha was someone who later, of course, he was a slave. He was freed by the Prophet of Islam, and he was considered the son of the Prophet, adopted son. His father comes, says, I want you back. The Prophet says, you can go. You're free to go. Zayd comes forward and says, if you give me whatever is in this dunya, all of it, I will never leave Rasulullah. Never. And he attained Shahada later in the Battle of Mu'tah. You have the famous servant of Amir al-Mu'mineen wa Imam al-Muttaqeen, Ali ibn Abi Talib, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. The sixth holy Imam says, Qambar was a servant of Ali ibn Abi Talib, وَكَانَ يُحِبُّ عَلِيًّا حُبًّا شَدِيدًا. Qambar used to love Ali excessively, and Ali used to love him. That's why many of the stories of the justice of the Imam, for example, solving the problems of the Imam, Qambar is right next to him. Qambar, go and get me something. Qambar, go back and this, right? But the final moment of his life, Qambar wrote for humanity how a servant of Ahl al-Bayt speaks about Ali Muhammad, how he would praise Ali Muhammad. Because Al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf al-Thaqafi alayhi la'anullah said, I want you to find me the person who loves Ali the most who's alive, and who spent the most with Ali now. They said to him, there's no one like Qambar. He has served Ali all his life. He said, bring me Qambar. When Qambar was brought before Hajjaj, he said to him, who are you? Identify who you are. Listen to the response of Qambar. Qambar said to him, Ana مولى من ضرب بسيفين وطعن برمحين وصلى القبلتين وبايع البيعتين وهاجر الهجرتين ولم يكفر بالله طرفة عين. I am the servant of someone who struck with two different swords, who used two different spears, who prayed to two different qiblas, who gave two different bay'ahs, who performed two different hijras, and never ever was disobedient to Allah or did any kufr. أنا مولى صالح المؤمنين ووارث النبيين وخير الوصيين وأكبر المسلمين ويعسوب المؤمنين ونور المهاجرين والمجاهدين ورئيس البكائين وزين العابدين وسراج الماضين وضوء القائمين وأفضل القانتين ولسان رسول رب العالمين. I am the slave of Salih al-Mu'mineen, the best of the believers. He is the inheritor of the prophets. He is the best of the successors. He is the greatest of the Muslims. He is the choicest of the believers. He is the light of the mujahids. He is the head of those who cry. He is the ornament of the worshippers. He is the light of those who have passed and the light for those who are going. He is the best of those who submit before Allah, and he is the tongue of Rasul Rabbil Alameen. He continues, وَأَوَّلُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ مِنْ آلِ يَاسِينَ الْمُؤَيَّدِ بِجِبْرَائِيلَ الْأَمِينَ المنصور بميكائيل المتين المحمود عند أهل السماء أجمعين سيد المسلمين والسابقين وقاتل الناكثين والمارقين والقاسطين والمحامي عن حرم المسلمين ومجاهد أعداء الناصبين ومطفئ نار الموقدين وأفخر من مشى من قريش أجمعين. He is the one who is what? Who is the first of the believers from the family of the Prophet. He is the one who is supported by Jibreel and given victory by Mikael, and the one whom the heavens praise, and the one who is the master of the Muslims and the master of all those that have come before. He's the one who killed the Nakithin, the Mariqin, the Qasitin, defends the sanctity of the Muslims. He stands greatly against those disbelievers. He extinguishes the lights of fitna. He is the best of those who walk from Quraysh. وأول من أجاب واستجاب لله أمير المؤمنين وصي نبيه في العالمين ناصر دين الله ولي الله لسان كلمة الله أبو الصبطين الحسن والحسين والله أمير المؤمنين حقا حقا علي بن أبي طالب. يا علي يا علي يا علي. And that's why you have these examples of people. Allahumma salli. These servants of Ahl al-Bayt recognize the status of Ali Muhammad. Did you know that on the 10th of Muharram there is a man by the name of Aslam al-Turki? He was a Turkish servant of Sayyid al-Shuhada. He was purchased after Shahada of Imam al-Mujtaba alayhi salam by Sayyid al-Shuhada. He was a writer for Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam and somebody who accompanied him. Imam then gifted him to his son Imam Zain al-Abidin. But he accompanied Imam to Karbala. Imam said to him, you can go. He said to him, Wallah, I will never abandon you, Ya Aba Abdullah. On the 10th of Muharram, according to the Khawarizmi, Maqtal al-Khawarizmi, the narration tell us that Aslam, this man, fought courageously, killed a number of enemy combatants until he fell. When he fell, he was breathing his last, but he was unconscious. Sayyid al-Shuhada came to him. Aba Abdullah sat next to him. The narration says Imam al-Hussain hugged him. Then he placed his cheeks on the cheeks of Aslam. And the moment he placed the cheeks, there was tears in the eyes of Hussein that fell on the cheeks of this slave, this servant. Then he woke up. The riwayah tells us the moment he woke up, he saw the beautiful face of Aba Abdullah. He smiled and he left this world. Yes. Subhanallah, these individuals recognized the true success and salvation through following the Ahl al-Bayt alayhum salam. The question that indeed we have today is, how can we become? Because we need to indeed learn from these inspirational examples. And wallah, when you look at Arba'een, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us all of the people who perform Ziyaratul Arba'een. Ziyaratul Arba'een is phenomenal. It's a demonstration of generosity, love, loyalty like no other. I tell you, people are overwhelmed when they see the khidmah of Aba Abdullah. That all that people want to do is serve Hussein. Yes. And this did not start in 2003. People think it only started after Allah removed the tyrannical regime. No. I remember one of the ulama said there was a man by the name of Abu Mujahid. He used to have a house within the farms, and that back in the time they used to walk between the farms so that the soldiers of the La'in, the dictator, do not capture them. So he had a house, he would welcome the Zuwar, he would give them food, they would allow them to sleep in his house. He was captured and he was executed for doing this. His wife, she said that, you know what happened? We had no food left, we had no money left. And it was coming up to Arba'een. And we wanted to serve the Zuwar. Yes, the Zuwar were coming, but we had no food. So she said, I sat down and I prayed to Allah in Salatul Layl. I said, Ya Allah, Hussein is beloved to you. I don't want to disappoint Aba Abdullah. I want to serve him. Help us. I don't have any money. I want to serve. She said, Wallah, next morning I woke up. I went outside and somebody had dropped outside our house bags and bags of rice and flour and sugar and all that we needed in order to prepare food for Zawar al-Hussein. I saw in my own eyes, and each and every one of you who've been to Karbala in Arba'een will have a story, no doubt, I know. I saw in my own eyes in one of the years walking to Karbala, a man who was elderly. He was holding a plate of dates with a little bit of honey or what we know as shira, something sweetened on the dates. And he was facing the Zuwar. They were walking towards him. He was fairly elderly, but he was doing something that I will never forget. He was holding the date with his hand and he was looking at the Zuwar, and if he's found somebody who with their mouth open, he would place the date in their mouth. I naturally had quite a lot of food, so I kept my mouth firmly shut. And I saw a man in front of me who didn't recognize this. And so the moment he came, the man placed the date in his mouth. He said, please, the man said to that elderly, I am not able to eat. I've eaten so much. The man's tears I can see in his eyes, the elderly. He held his hand and says, I beg you, don't deprive me from the honor of serving the Zuwar of Hussein. I want to serve you. Please allow me. Allahu Akbar, this is outstanding. Not able to see any example like this throughout the world. The question today is, there is a line in Ziyarat Ashura which needs to be understood, which will help us to become Khadamatul Hussein. What is this line? Please pay attention to this. In Ziyarat Ashura, we recite the following. Allahumma ja'anni indaka wajihan bil Hussein alayhi salam fi dunya wal akhirah. In Dua Tawassul, we recite Ya wajihan and Allah. Have you ever wondered what does that mean? Today I was looking at the various translations available online. They don't do it justice at all. At all. This needs to be understood. If I want to be a Khadim of Hussein, I need to appreciate what the 5th and the 6th Imam want me to ask Allah. When I say Allahumma ja'anni indaka wajihan bil Hussein, number one, it means that if I want the status that is described by the Ahl al-Bayt, I have to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for it. He's the one who grants me without a shadow of a doubt. Wajihan in Arabic means what? Comes from wajh. Please understand this. You will benefit, I guarantee you. Comes from face. Wajh is face. They say the face has 3 important characteristics. Number 1, it identifies you. People can see who you are. Yes. Number 2, of great importance is if somebody wants something, they will come and speak to you on your face, not back. Yes. And number 3, it expresses your emotions. If someone looks at someone's face, usually without the masks, they are able to find out that they have some happiness, sadness, grief, whatever. Yes. The face has this role. Now, Allahumma ja'anni, first of all, ja'al means from you. You make me. Nobody will interfere once you decide. Andaka wajihan. This means what? Ya Allah, I want to be the face that represents you. That people look at me and they remember the greatness and the beauty of Allah. That I become a source by which people feel the emotion through connecting to Allah. That people come to me and I stand out. I am honored. I'm specified as a person who reminds people of Allah. Indaka. Not just anyone. Because there is what is known as al-wajahatul ilahiyya and al-wajahatul ijtima'iyya. Wajahatul ilahiyya means what? I want to be an individual who represents the Almighty and be respected by Allah, not necessarily people. There are those who work to get the honor from other human beings, from society, from distinguished individuals. Now, once we understand this, now we can come to appreciate when the Imam says, ask Allah, Allahumma ja'anni indaka wajihan bil Hussein. Bil Hussein means what? There are 2 understandings of bil Hussein, this ba. The first is the ba associated with being with Aba Abdullah, being alongside him. Listen to this beautiful narration from Imam Ja'far ibn Muhammad Al-Sadiq, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. The narration is from Zurara, from one of the Imams, either the 5th or the 6th. He says, if on the day of Qiyamah, إذا كان يوم القيامة جلس الحسين في ظل العرش وجمع الله زواره وشيعته. When there is the day of Qiyamah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings forth the lovers and the Shia of Hussein next to him. Yes, next to Hussein. Then they will see لِيُبْصِرُوا مِنَ الْكَرَامَةِ وَالنَّصْرَةِ وَالْبَهْجَةِ. They will see of the excellence, of the beauty, of the merits. وَالسُّرُورِ. They are very happy being next to Abu Abdullah. To the extent that they would not know how much blessings they are being encapsulated. All of a sudden they get a message. It's from whom? It's from messengers from their wives, the Hurul Ain. The wives, or perhaps the husbands, they would say, we missed you, it's been a while. You have not come to see us. Yes? The riwayah says, they turn to them and say, don't worry, inshallah we will come. Sawfa naji, inshallah. The beauty of being with Abu Abdullah, yes, it is something profound, something outstanding. That's why once a group of people from Iran went to Medina to visit the sixth holy Imam. And when they came to see him, they saw a man who was what? Who was holding the camel or the horse of Imam, taking him to Masjid al-Nabawi to perform ziyarah and to pray. And he stood outside when Imam alayhi salam went inside to perform his ibadah. So one of these businessmen came to this servant of Imam al-Sadiq and said to him, I would like to offer you something. He said, what would you like to offer me? He said, I would like to give you all my wealth in return for me being in your position. Me serving Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam. Are you happy with this? He said, when I said to this slave, this servant, his eyes all of a sudden dilated. He said, really? He said, yes. He said, before that, go and seek permission from your master. If he agrees, we swap. I give you all my wealth and I will be in your position. So the riwayah says he ran towards Imam al-Sadiq inside the mosque. Imam alayhi salam was praying. So he waited for the Imam to finish. When he finished, he sat next to the Imam and said to him, Ya ibn Rasulillah, I have a request. I know you, the Ahl al-Bayt, you don't turn people back. He said, yes, why can I help? He said, this man is offering me this. Can I please take it? Imam said, of course, you're free. You could do it. That moment, the person was ecstatic, jubilant, happy. I'm now going to be rich. He arose, he's about to walk. Imam said to him, but before you go, let me tell you one thing. The man said, yes. He said, let me tell you that on the day of Qiyamah, we, the Ahl al-Bayt, will be on the elevated status like no other. And Allah will tell us, look around you, those who loved you, those who served you, bring them with you to Jannah. He said, the moment Imam said this, I fell on the ground. I went back and said to the person, forget it. I'm staying a servant of Ja'far ibn Muhammad. This is what? Wajihan bil Hussain. Yes, this ba means what? It means to be associated with whatever he stood for. That's number one, to be with him. Number two is to seek him as a means of wasila. Wajihan bil Hussain means, Ya Allah, I want to be someone representing you. Yes, an individual serving you, Ya Rabb al-Alameen, through the wasila of Abu Abdullah. That's why Allama Tabatabai says, yes, mark these words. He says, no one will reach the elevated status of spirituality and ma'rifah and the cognizance and understanding Allah except through being in the shrine of Abu Abdullah or through attaining the shafa'ah and the tawassul of Hussain ibn Ali. Yes. It is a means by which we are able to attain that proximity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This wajihan bil Hussain refers to association or a means of connecting through Sayyid al-Shuhada, Abu Abdullah salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. That is why one of our maraji, Ayatullah Mar'ashi Najafi, what does he say? He says, if you want tawfiq from Allah, do three things. These are tips for you tonight. A special night. Yes? Our maraji give us these gems, these treasures. He says, always be in wudu, number one. Number two, take part in funerals of believers. In namaz mayyit and the tashyi'. And number three, whatever it is for Hussain ibn Ali, rise and compete with each other to do it. Do not abandon Abu Abdullah if you want tawfiq in your life, isn't it? Now, the question that is very, very important is, what is the merit of being Khadim al-Hussain? I want to be, but give me one narration about the excellence of being a servant of Abu Abdullah. And wallah, this narration, I tell you, I have never mentioned this narration from the minbar ever. I've recently come across it, yes, and it is absolutely mind-blowing. Wallah, it is a narration, breaks the heart. This narration is from the Holy Six Imam. It says that an individual, a group of people came to the Imam, peace and blessings be upon him, Sayyid al-Shuhada. فقالوا يا ابن رسول الله إن أصحابنا وفدوا إلى معاوية. يا ابن رسول الله, our friends, they went to see Muawiyah, but we have come to see you. فقال, Imam Hussain alayhi salam said to them, this is found in Mawsu'at Kalimat Sayyid al-Shuhada, the book. Imam said to them, إذن, very well, أجيزكم بأكثر مما يجيزهم. I will give you more reward than what that man will give those people reward. You've come to see me. Look at the response of these people. They said, إنما جئنا, we have come not because of reward. We're not looking for reward. That means we've come because we love you. We've come, we want to see you. We want to be associated with you. The narration says, فَطَأَطَأَ رَأْسَهُ. Imam then all of a sudden lowered his head on the ground. And he looked at the ground. وَأَطْرَقَ طَوِيلًا. And he became silent for a long while. He didn't say anything. ثُمَّ رَفَعَ رَأْسَهُ. Then he raised his head and said, قَصِيرَةٌ مِّن طَوِيلًا. I'm going to tell you something short instead of being long. مَنْ أَحَبَّنَا. Whomsoever loves us, لَمْ يُحِبُّنَا لِقَرَابَةٍ بَيْنَنَا. He doesn't love us because he or she is related to us. وَلَا لِمَعْرُوفٍ. Not because of good that they expect from us. إِنَّمَا أَحَبَّنَا لِلَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. Because they love us, because they love Allah and His Messenger. فَمَنْ أَحَبَّنَا جاء معنا يوم القيامة كهاتين. Whomsoever comes to us, loving us in this state, is with us on the day of Qiyamah. Then he did this. He put these two fingers right next to each other. Yes, to these groups of individuals. What an honor. You say to me, merits of Khadim al-Hussein, to be with Abu Abdullah on the day of Qiyamah like this is something that is just mind-blowing, yes. Something that we would give definitely our lives for. That is why someone comes forward and says, what are the qualities of Khadim al-Hussein? Someone who wants to serve Abu Abdullah. What characteristics should they have, yes? What features should they possess? These are very important. Number one, they should do it for the sake of Allah and Allah alone. Ikhlas is of the utmost importance. They dedicate all their services of Imam al-Hussein for the sake of the Almighty subhanahu wa ta'ala. They don't want the showing off. They don't do the video clips for views on YouTube. They're not looking for the likes and the recognition on social media, but rather everything is for the pleasure of the Almighty subhanahu wa ta'ala. Khadim al-Hussein is mukhlas lillah. Number one. Number two, humility. They must be mutawadha. If you want to be of Khuddam al-Hussein, you have to express humility. Yes, the fourth holy Imam, when he would serve people, yes, in Hajj, on the journey to Hajj, you've heard, yes, he would not want to be known. The moment he's discovered, he moves to another caravan, another group, yes. In other words, you mustn't in any shape or form feel a sense of arrogance over those that you are helping, over those that you are assisting. Number three, you must be an individual who forgives and is patient. Because people may insult you, may say things against you. People may injure you. Yes, in different shapes and form. Very quickly, a story in this regard. There was an individual who has a mawkib in Iraq today. Yes, a mawkib, and he has sons. So every year he distributes the task to his sons. So one of his sons, in that year, got the task of making tea throughout the whole days of Arba'een. Your task is to do tea. So the son said, that's khidmah of Hussein. Every year, on the eve of Ashura, he takes his sons and he goes to whom? Goes to Abu Abdullah. And in that shrine, they ask, they say, Ya Hussein, we beg you to intercede to Allah to make us continue serving you next year, please, this coming Arba'een, whatever happens. Because we are afraid this is taken away. وَلَا تَسْتَبْدِلْ بِي غَيْرِي. Yes, this is a dua in the months of Ramadan. Allah can change the khadama of Hussein. He take it away from you and gives it to someone else. So they're begging, please, please, please. Every year they do this. This young man said, in one particular year, I was serving tea, and I noticed an elderly man shouting at someone, being abusive against someone. So I felt a bit upset. Why are you shouting at him? In my mind, I thought. So somehow, subconsciously, I didn't offer him tea. I moved, and I gave tea to the other person. He said, that elderly man looked at me and spat in my face and insulted me. He said, I wiped it off, and I didn't do anything. But I was ashamed of myself. Why would I not give chai to one of the zuwar of Abu Abdullah, even if he was rude? He said, I became fearful. I said, because of this, Allah is going to take away the khidmah of Abu Abdullah. Maybe He will take it away. He said, I was having sleepless nights until it was the time for us to go to Abu Abdullah. That night was most difficult. I begged him. I cried. I said, Ya Hussein, I'm so sorry. Please allow me to serve you. He said, the next morning, I was in the mokib, and my father, I saw him speaking to that elderly man who had come. I said, that's it. He's complaining. He's saying that the boy of yours did not serve me tea. He is this, this, and this. He said, when I looked at him, I said, that's it. It's the end. He said, they called me. My father looked at me and said, from this day, you're no longer making tea. You are in charge of the mokib entirely. I said, what happened? The man who was next to him, the elderly, began to cry. He said that in my dream, I saw Amir al-Mu'mineen, and he said to me, how dare you spit on the face of Khadim of my son Hussein? Go and apologize to him now. Yes. Look at the status of an individual. If you are humble, if you're willing to forgive, that is of the excellence. Yes. Similarly, adherence. In other words, persistence, year after year, not just 1 year, not just one off. Somebody who's continuous, somebody who continues to struggle, yes, gives it the best as much as possible, yes. And I leave you with this narration from whom? From the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wasallam. لو كان السخاء رجلا لكان الحسين. If generosity was a human being, it would have been Hussein ibn Ali. Yes. Allahu Akbar. Yes. That's why in Dua Arafah, Imam himself says to us, be like those who serve me, because I am somebody who served Allah. Allahumma faj'anni ilayka bi khidmatin tusiluni ilayk. Ya Allah, make me of those who is a khadim, who is a servant. Final point that we must discuss is, how can I serve him? What are the ways in which I can be Khadim al-Hussein? Of course, there's the traditional ways. Reciting the musibah, reciting majalis, reciting poetry, or ma'tam, or noha. Yes, one of our ulama, yes, his name is Sayyid Al-Shirazi, alallahu ta'ala maqama. He was having a debate with an individual by the name of Sheikh Mohammed Al-Hilli, normal discussion. He said to him, what did you do? He said, why? He said, last night I saw Abu Abdullah add your name to the khuddam, to the servants. He said, the only thing I did was last night I read the musibah for my children, my family. He said, because of this, he included you in the servants of Abu Abdullah, isn't it? So these ways, those who work in the parking, those who facilitate the majlis of Abu Abdullah, those who work in AV, yes, those who provide food, those who look after children, in every shape and form, do not underestimate this service to Sayyid al-Shuhada. That is, without a shadow of a doubt, something that we must continue, and it must be encouraged for our children to follow in this particular path. However, there is much more that we can do. What else? How can I be Khadim of Hussein? Today the world is confused. We are going through technological warfare. Our youth are being deviated. There is thirst for genuine knowledge. Somebody out there who has skill sets in website design, in app application design. Somebody out there who's able to make what? Knowledge accessible to people. That is khidmah of Abu Abdullah Al-Hussein. Yes. And may Allah bless the mu'mineen at the World Federation. Tabligh, they have produced these Labbayka Ya Hussein, Labbayka Ya Mahdi videos in response to misconceptions. Watch them. Learn from them. They are very beneficial, from great established ulama of the Hawza. Yes, to answer these doubts. We need more of this. That is what khidmah of Abu Abdullah. What else is khidmah? When I strive to improve the lives of others, humanitarian work, assistance in any shape or form, helping my community, helping society, helping other brothers and sisters. This Ali Asghar water appeal, yes, that you've just heard now. It's our responsibility to rise, to assist others. This is servitude. This in itself is khidmah without a shadow of a doubt. Someone asks, what else could I do to be of those considered khadim of Hussein? Social justice, speaking out, yes, campaigning, looking at oppression and injustice that is happening out there. I tell you how many times we say, Ya laytana kunna ma'akum. I wish that we are with you. Why do we have to wish? The opportunity is there today. Sometimes we keep ourselves to the past, but Hussein lives on. There is injustice happening in many parts of the world. We can campaign, we can mobilize, we can write, we can author, we can protest, we can do so many things to establish righteousness. Who is Hussein, for example, have a campaign, hashtag speak out. Everything's available for people to come and place it on their social media. It doesn't take much of their time. But we need to rise to the responsibility. We need to look at other ways of being khadim of Hussein. Yes, the conventional is amazing. Majlis, ma'tam, mawkib, aza, walk, procession. They are amazing. But Abu Abdullah also wants us to get the message out there to the world. To be those who instill positive change everywhere that we can be, isn't it? And that is why, my dear sisters and brothers, in Muharram, in Safar, other times of the year, when we remember Abu Abdullah, it's a commitment, it's a dedication. When I strike my hand on my chest, I am saying to Hussein, Ya Abu Abdullah, I will strive to be your khadim. And this chest of mine and this heart of mine will pump in order to serve your message and your principles. That eyes that shed the tears for Hussein, I am saying to him, Ya Abu Abdullah, these eyes will not look at haram. These eyes will work towards establishing righteousness and justice. Yes, when I walk to the places of the remembrance of Abu Abdullah, when I take part in the ma'tam, these legs and these feet are instruments to improve the lives of others, to instigate kindness and positive transformation, isn't it? Inspired by those who surrounded themselves with Abu Abdullah. Each and every one of them knew the language of being a khadim, and each and every one of them is a teacher for us today. On a night like this, our hearts are in Karbala on the eve of Ashura, whereby the Sahaba of Imam Hussain were in a position of joy. Because I tell you, what is more sweeter than to serve your beloved? Somebody that you love so much, somebody that you would die for. And I mean it when I say, these individuals like Zuhair ibn al-Qayn, when they said, Ya Abu Abdullah, 1,000 times if I am burnt and return back, I will still fight for you. They didn't say it out of exaggeration. They actually meant it. These were incredible human beings. Imam alayhi salam on a night like this comes out of his tent, goes and inspects the campsite, wants to see what is going on. All of a sudden, he is a man walking behind him. He looks back. He says, who are you? He says, Sayyidi Abu Abdullah, Ana Nafi'. This is Nafi' ibn Hilal, famous companion of the Imam. Imam said to him, Nafi', look at the darkness of the night. No one's going to see you. Go and save yourself. Run. Save yourself. Nafi' falls on the feet of the Imam. shaking, crying, holds on to the aba of the Imam. Sayyidi ya Hussein, Wallah, if they take away my sword and my arrows and I'm left with a stick, I will fight until the stick is broken and until my body is torn into pieces. How dare I leave you and abandon you, my master Aba Abdullah. That moment, Imam Hussain returns back, thanks Nafi', enters the tent, sees his beloved sister Zainab. She says to him, Akhi ya Aba Abdullah, tomorrow is the day. Tomorrow is the battle. Have you spoken to your companions? Have you established their loyalty? Who is standing outside? Habib ibn Mudahir. He hears this from Zainab. He runs towards Muslim ibn Awsaja and he says, Muslim, the daughter of Ali is questioning us. Let us go and show our love. They go and they stand outside the tent. Assalamu alaykum ya ahla baytun nubuwwa. Peace be upon you, O family of the Holy Prophet. We want to assure you, you will never be left alone tomorrow. We will all give our lives for you on the day of Ashura. And wallah, they did. Each and every one of them. How amazing they were in honoring their allegiance to Aba Abdullah. That is why there was a moment on the day of Ashura when Aba Abdullah al-Hussein stood alone. He looked towards his right and there was the bodies of Zuhair ibn al-Qayn and Habib and Burair and Abis. And he looked towards his left and there was the bodies of Ali al-Akbar, Qasim, Awn and Muhammad. That is the moment that Sayyid al-Shuhada cried out, ألا هل من ناصر ينصرنا ألا هل من مغيث يغيثنا ألا هل من ذاب يذب عن حرم رسول الله. Is there anyone to help us? Is there anyone to support us? Is there anyone who will defend the sanctity of the family of the Holy Prophet? The narration says Imam Zain al-Abidin was inside the tent. He was ill. When he heard this, he said to his auntie Zainab, give me a stick and give me a sword. She said to him, why? He said, I cannot bear to hear my father crying out for help. I will use a stick to stand up. I will fight. When Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam recognized that this is the final moments, that it was time for him to embrace the will of Allah and to attain martyrdom, he went back to his tent. When he went back to his tent, he was ready to bid farewell. But before he would bid farewell, there was one final request. Sayyidah Zainab came out. There was something under her aba. Imam al-Hussain looked at her. Sayyidah looked at Aba Abdullah. Akhi ya Hussain, this is your son Asghar. He stopped crying because he hasn't had water. His tears have dried up. Ya Aba Abdullah, maybe the enemies will quench his thirst. Please take him and see if they will give him water. You know, the poet says, Ali al-Asghar eventually meets his nephew Muhsin. He says to him, oh my nephew Muhsin, shall I tell you how I felt on the plains of Karbala? I was looking at the beautiful face of my father, then I felt the warmth and the heat of the arrow on my throat. Oh Muhsin, how did you feel? Muhsin said, oh Uncle Ali, you felt the arrow in your throat. I felt the nail in my body. Oh Uncle Ali, you saw your father before you died. I never saw my father Ali before I died. You were able to meet your mother Rabab, but I never met my mother Fatima. Ali al-Asghar says, but Muhsin, they fed you. You were inside the womb of Sayyidatun Nisa. But I was thirsty, Muhsin. I was thirsty. Allahu Akbar. Abu Abdullah carries this young child of his to the battlefield. He raises this young baby of his before the enemy. Ajarakumullah, he begins to say to those individuals, if the elders have committed any sin, what is the wrong that the children have done? Why don't you take him? Why don't you feed him? Why don't you quench his thirst? At that moment, Umar ibn Sa'ad looked towards his army. He saw the army quarreling. One said, let's feed him. Another said, let him die out of the thirst. Then he looks at Harmala. He said, oh Harmala, iqta' niza' al-qawm. Stop the discussion of the people. There was one thing that this meant. I tell you, what did Harmala do? Harmala said, I took out an arrow used normally for elders. For adults, that was a three-pronged arrow. I looked at the baby. The baby was being carried by his father Hussein. But I didn't know how to shoot him. Where do I slaughter him? Then he said, I saw the baby reveal part of his neck. His neck was very white. I began to aim the arrow. I shot the arrow. فَذَبَحْتَهُ مِنَ الْوَرِيدِ إِلَى الْوَرِيدِ. The arrow penetrated the throat of Asghar. It went from one side. It came out the other. Blood began to pour. Hussein picked up the blood and threw it towards the heavens. رضا بقضائك تسليما لأمرك يا الله. Look at what they've done. هون ما نزل بي أنه بعين الله. Imam al-Baqir says the malaika grabbed the blood of Ali al-Asghar. Not a single drop came down. Then he hears a cry from the heavens. Hussein, Hussein, don't worry about your Asghar. We are looking after him. We're nursing him. Now he holds Asghar under his aba. I guess this is the most painful moment. He goes towards the campsite. Sayyida Zainab comes out. Al-Rabab come out. Have they fed our children? Have they given our Asghar water? He is silent. Maybe he's given some water. He cries out, come and take my son Madhbuh. Come and take my son Asghar. He's been slaughtered. Yes. Allahu Akbar. The narrations tell us. What do the narrations tell us? When Imam Zain al-Abidin came to bury his body, the body of his father, on the 13th of Muharram, when he placed the body of Imam al-Hussain inside the grave, when he placed the body, what did he do? He was about to close the body, then he did something. Bani Asad said, we saw that he left the grave and he walked in Karbala. He walked on the soil until he came back with something under his aba. Later we told him, Zain al-Abidin, where did you go? What did you do? He said, when I was placing the body of my father in the grave, I heard a call from within the grave. The call said, Bunay Ali, my son, my baby, my baby. The soil of Karbala has burnt his neck. Place him on my chest. Place my Asghar on my chest.